This is Bloomberg Quicktake. I'm Scarlet Fu. There is a musical number from the hit Broadway show Hamilton that talks about being in the room where it happens. But for many professionals with historically marginalized backgrounds, especially Black women, the path to the boardroom is far from clear. One group that's on a mission to shepherd more Black women into board seats has devised a comprehensive approach. So joining us today is Shannon Nash. She's a member of the advisory board of Black Women on Boards. Shannon is also CFO of Reputation.com, and she's a board member of User Testing. Shannon, welcome to Quicktake. I want to start with what's happened over the past year and a half, because George Floyd's death in May 2020 caused a national reckoning of race in the U.S. It created this urgency to address inequities, including in the corporate world, and we've started to see corporate boards become more diverse. Walk us through how much more diverse corporate boards have become over the past year and a half.
Well, thank you for having me, first of all, and shining a light on this topic. You know, I think that in the last year and a half, we've seen a lot of efforts to diversify boards, both through some actions by states, like I'm in California, the state of California, NASDAQ and others have really stepped up to say that it is time to have diverse boards, and we're going to help push that along. Our organization, Black Women on Boards, started when two trailblazers, Merlene Santil and Robin Washington, decided that they were going to mentor and support some Black women being on boards, and they convened 18 women. And in that time, until fast forward now, most of those women are now on public company boards, and the organization has grown from 18 to over 150 women, and 61% of those women are on public company boards. So if you could just take a little bit of the progress that we had and extrapolate that across other boards, I think you'll see that we've made a lot of progress in a very short period of time.
Those are some pretty encouraging numbers. Let's talk a little bit about this push to get more Black women on boards, because you talk in your mission about the specific invisible obstacles that Black women face, Black female executives face. What do they face that perhaps Black men or other women don't encounter?
You know, I think that part of it is just being in the network and having access to opportunities. And I think as a whole, that's some of the issues that we as Black women have. You brought up Hamilton. You know, you have to be in the group, you have to be known, you have to be vetted, and if you're just not in that network, those opportunities will never come to you because you don't know about them. So a big part of what we're trying to do is just get people exposure and access, and we're working with lots of different partners, to several VC firms, including Sapphire Ventures, Kleiner Perkins, to really get access to their opportunities in their portfolio companies, simply because our members are already board qualified. We just want them to be, on the short list when opportunities come about. So we're fighting to just get on the list. Mm-hmm. But I think once we get on the list, we actually do very well because, again, our members are qualified for these positions.
You talk about network and access a lot. Is there a one-size-fits-all approach to getting more Black women on boards, or does it have to be a case-by-case basis where you kind of figure out which company you want, you target that company, and you customize an approach to that company?
I think there's some similarities. I don't think it's so super customized, like person by person. I think there's definitely some similarities. But again, it's going to really depend on some of it on you and your background. For example, I'm a CFO, a CPA, a financial expert. I tend to be attractive to boards looking for an audit chair because every board has to have an audit chair and somebody who's a qualified financial expert. But other boards may be looking for somebody with product experience, for example, or a marketing person with CMO experience. And so their pathway to getting on the board is going to be completely different than my pathway to getting on a board. But the good news is, like organizations like ours, we have somebody who has been there, done that, that can help you shepherd the way to do that.
Right, who can kind of lay out a template in a way for this is the approach you might want to take. For our younger viewers out there, explain why boards are so important when we hear that there's so many companies, particularly from your neck of the woods, California, where the founder, the owner has all this voting control and basically calls the shots for everything, so much so that it feels like boards can be almost decorative parts of the company.
I think that, there are a lot of boards that are not that way. So part of it is you just figuring out what is the best match and board for you. I'm a big proponent of you pick culture and quality of board over quantity, because all boards are not created equal. And so I think that's something very important as you're trying to mentor somebody to looking for like what it is you want to do. I think the other thing about it is as you are younger in your career and you're thinking about how do I get into the C-suite, I'm always saying add how you can get into board service in that kind of career goal, and start talking to people early on in your career to figure out how, their pathway to getting there, like what did they do to get there. I just got very fortunate because I got exposed to even know what a board was at a very young age. I was in college at the University of Virginia, and a black woman executive, which I had never seen before in my life. Her name she's still alive, Ann Fudge. And she came in there talking about, first of all, she was in the C-suite, and that blew my mind. Second of all, she started talking about boards, and I was like, I don't even know what it is she's talking about, but I need to figure that out and have that as part of my career trajectory, however that works, because she talked about really feeling like she was making a difference to just the strategy and the shareholders of a company. And it was so empowering, but I got exposed to that in college, and that was, we'll just say, 20-something plus, maybe 30 plus years ago.
So it planted a seed in your head, and it's something that you were thinking about
Absolutely.
as you rose the corporate ranks and got into C-suite positions. Another thing I want to ask about is obviously there are a lot of C-suite positions that lend themselves very nicely to being named to a board. CFO, obviously. What about positions like CTO or CIO, Chief Technology Officer, Chief Information Officer? They're increasingly becoming more visible. CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, the revenue generator. Which kinds of C-suite positions should you be aiming for in order to increase your chances of being named to a board later on?
Here's the thing. You're right. There used to be a time where it was the CEO and the CFO kind of had, the most opportunities to be on the board. But especially with tech companies, that is completely changing. So you are seeing boards looking for somebody with that CIO or CTO experience, product experience, marketing experience. Is really going to depend on the board. And so we talk a lot about figuring out what is your superpower, and then honing in and having your story and your pitch really specific about what you're going to bring to a board because of the experiences that you had. And then matching that with the board that's looking for the marketer, or I'll tell you two roles that historically had a lot of problems that I don't feel like have those problems anymore. The General Counsel, Chief Legal Officer, and the Chief Human Resource Officer. Nowadays, where companies are dealing a lot with culture, pay equity, things of that nature, those roles are also increasingly becoming popular for board positions. So pretty much the entire C-suite has a lane on a board.
Interesting. You had mentioned the audit committee. Obviously, that plays a very important role. Are there certain committees that are more critical than others, where you have more influence than others?
Well, so the three main committees are audit, nomination and governance committee.
What does that mean?
And that's the committee that really is in charge of nominating new board members, and getting them voted on. And governance, all the kind of the government's compliance type of things that a company may have to deal with goes through NomGov. And then the compensation committee, the infamous compensation committee, which sets the comp for the CEO. Super important committee. So what I would say is those are the three. People can go back and forth on which ones are the most valuable. But as you are doing your board journey, you should kind of figure out which one of those committees is your superpower and really kind of go for it in that committee.
Shannon, thank you so much. Shannon Nash, really appreciate your joining us. Member of the advisory board of Black Women on Boards, also board member of User Testing and CFO of Reputation.com.